Sarah had just finished a late shift at work, exhausted and eager to get home. As she drove deeper into the country, she began to feel an unsettling presence. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Every time she glanced in the rearview mirror, the road behind her seemed darker. There was something out there, but there couldn't be. She hadn't seen another car for miles. She looked again. Nothing. The road was empty. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw something. A figure, standing by the side of the road, just beyond the reach of her headlights. It wasn't the kind of person you'd see on a desolate highway in the middle of the night. The figure stood still, their back turned. A chill ran down Sarah's spine as she tried to shake off the feeling of dread creeping up her neck. She kept driving, trying to ignore the figure. But as she passed, she couldn't help but glance over. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw it. An old, battered truck parked a few yards behind the figure. And in the back of the truck, a strange, old doll was sitting, its eyes staring directly at her. It was as if it knew she was there. The figure had moved, close to the car. It was at her window now, its face hidden in shadow, the eerie glow of the streetlight barely illuminating it. And just as Sarah turned to look, she heard the voice, a low, raspy whisper, barely audible over the sound of her panicked breath. "Don't look behind you." Sarah didn't stop until she reached home, but every night since, when she drives that same road, she feels it again. The eyes, the figure, and the doll. Somewhere in the dark, someone is always watching. Because in the quiet of the night, some things are better left unseen.
The rain hammered against the taxi's roof, a relentless rhythm that mirrored the frantic beat of Clara's heart. She'd missed the last bus, and the late-night taxi was her only way home. The driver, a gaunt man with eyes that seemed to absorb. The dim interior light hadn't spoken a word since she'd given him the address. "Just a few more minutes," she murmured, more to herself than him. He didn't respond, his hands gripping the wheel with a strange intensity. The taxi veered slightly, and Clara gripped the armrest, her knuckles white. The streetlights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that danced across the rain-streaked windows. They turned onto a narrow, winding road, the houses thinning out, replaced by dense, dark woods. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and unsettling. "Are we still on the right way?" Clara asked, her voice trembling slightly. The driver didn't answer. He simply pressed harder on the accelerator, the engine whining in protest. The taxi lurched forward, the headlights cutting through the darkness like desperate, searching eyes. Then, she saw it. A flicker of movement in the trees, a dark shape that seemed to glide between the trunks. Clara's breath caught in her throat. "Did you see that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The driver remained silent. The shape reappeared, closer this time. It was tall, impossibly tall and thin, with limbs that seemed to bend at unnatural angles. It moved with a fluid, unsettling grace, keeping pace with the taxi. Clara's fear escalated into full-blown panic. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers trembling as she tried to dial her friend. The screen flickered, then went dark. No signal. "Stop the car!" she screamed, her voice cracking. The driver didn't stop. He simply pressed harder on the accelerator, the engine roaring like a wounded beast. The shape in the woods kept pace, its dark form a constant menacing presence. The taxi swerved violently, nearly hitting a tree. Clara screamed, her body slamming against the door. She looked out the window. The shape was gone. Relief washed over her, a fleeting moment of respite. Then she saw it in the rearview mirror. The driver's eyes, reflecting the dim dashboard light, were no longer human. They glowed with an eerie, unnatural luminescence, and his face was contorted into a grotesque, inhuman grin. His teeth seemed too long, too sharp. He turned to her, his voice a low, guttural rasp. "We're almost there," he said, and the taxi plunged into the darkness of the woods, the rain swallowing her screams.